Very good. Well, welcome back, those who came back. I'm still Chris Talbott. I'm still with the 501st Legion. We'll see how that goes for the day. But I had a request, but I came back anyway. And we're going to go ahead and start with session 2. We're going to start cutting and sewing the rope. And so we're basically going to start with there. I need to put my glasses back on here in a second. Is to essentially map out our cuts, make them, and then start with the basic stitches to sew at the sides and the sleeves. I unwisely put away my best friend, blue tape. I think the 3M company is about to award me an Innovator of the Year award for creative ways in which to use their product. So, and for those of you who know anything about sewing, this is absolutely not the way most people do this. So, essentially what we're going to do is we have our cut cloth, cut to length and width. We're going to use the entire length and width of the cloth for this particular demonstration, just because it's a little simpler. For your own measurements, you would use whatever measurements you happen to come up with on measuring your subject. As I mentioned before, we're still folded in half along the length. So this will be the shoulder right there. And what we're basically going to do is we're going to, from the edge, I'm going to measure, and this is an unwieldy device, but it does come in handy. Let me go ahead and actually just get rid of the T-square portion of it. We don't really need that. And we're going to measure, as I think I mentioned in the last session, we're going to use 10-inch as our length, so that we end up with a 20-inch circumference on the sleeve. So what I like to do is just throw a piece of tape onto the fabric there, and mark the other side the same way. There's so much cloth. All right. And again, if it seems awkward, I'm just trying to keep the ruler from falling onto the floor. All right, so there's our 10-inch line, which we'll use in a minute. Because we're going to turn the cloth around. Yeah. That microphone really makes those sounds a lot louder.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to blow up the screen so it actually shows what you're
So for the camera can't come any closer, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
And I was mostly for when we got to the stitching, having a view of the actual sewing machine itself. I thought might be instructive. So, all right. So as I mentioned before, and I will verify, we had a 52-inch length. There's 48. And actually, we have 54. So if I'm taking 20 out of the middle of that, that is going to leave me 34, which means 17 on either side. As I mentioned before in the previous session, I am an engineer by training and by trade, so I love math. Y'all might not like it as well as I do. I apologize for exposing you to more of it, but so we'll just measure again our 17 inches in either side. And that will basically kind of define for us where our sleeve cut is going to begin and end. So it's going to begin at the edge of the it's going to end right there. So we'll go ahead and put a line of tape on that. And same deal here. Again, this is mostly just something to have to follow with the rotary cutter. The next set of measurements will be to define the A-frame, or the A-line, honestly, of the road. And so what I decided on was I wanted to add about an inch of circumference around the barrel for every 4 inches I went down. So 1 to 4. You could play with the ratio. It's 1 to 4 is, gives you a fairly nice wide bottom of the hem, but not overly flouncy, if I can commit to that word. So move these out of the way here real quick. We'll use them to cut if we don't need them for measuring. So again, this is where having the kind of the grid lines of the fabric lined out for you helps you out a little bit. And so if I lay my straight edge kind of along that grid, and then as I go down every so often, I will use this one and say, okay, so for every, so actually, here's where the math gets weird. Since I'm doing this on both sides, I'm actually going to increase 1 inch this way for every 8 inches. Because half an inch would be at 4 inches, and then the other half on the other side would be the inch I want to get for that 4 inches. So, because I'm adding to both sides of the edge, I can shallow it out. So, but in any event, all you're really looking for, you could actually, frankly, eyeball this if you wanted to. You could actually just take your straight edge or whatever you have, and just kind of line it out to where you get a nice kind of a 7 shape here, and that would work out well. Just out of curiosity, I want to see what measuring it and eyeballing it would have resulted in a difference of. So go ahead and 8 inches down, 1 inch in, 8 inches down. Hey, chair, you're in the way. So that gives me enough of a line to kind of say, okay. So yeah, I wasn't too far off. I was a little aggressive on my angle, but it kind of comes down to there's no specific. No one's going to take a millimeter measure to your costume and go, oh, you're an inch over. As long as it looks sufficiently loose and sufficiently kind of baggy, that's really the thing we're looking for. Let's go ahead and then drop down a line of tape there. And the tape is mostly just to give me something to follow with the rotary cutter. If you want to mark it with a marking pencil or chalk or whatever your favorite marking sewing paraphernalia is, absolutely you can do that. I just love tape. So, go ahead and slide our table protectors underneath here. And we'll be doing the same thing on the other side, so that's where maybe eyeballing, you at least take a measurement of where you eyeballed and transfer it to the other side. That would probably do you some favors later on in making sure you look nice and even. That should be up. It's not far enough in. All right. Plates. Again, if I were doing this on my work table at home, if I don't really worry about making cuts in, you just do this right there, right then. Since I've already managed to spill paint on the carpet, maybe you don't add to the carnage. Alright, so I forget who it was who was asking earlier about whether or not there would be scraps. There will be scraps. We would use those scraps for the strips for the boots, which we would just take the scrap and just cut a like inch and a half strip, and then make a nice long strip. Then you're going to wrap the boot around, and yeah, so it's pretty. I mean, you're still going to end up with cloth you're not using. It's just going to happen, but at least as a use for some of that extra cloth. All right, and then let's go ahead and straighten this back out here. There's a nice flat surface to cut on. And there we go. And finish the cut. Little stragglers. Okay. I'll set this aside for use of strips later. And then we can just remove our tape. Plus, it's kind of fun. Tape all fine. Okay, and the same operation on the other side. Get out nice and flat. And going from your line there. Straight down line. 3/4 or so inches. Half an inch, so 8, 32. And an inch. Fill in that little gap there, just so I have a corner to work from. And 32 minus 8 is 124. I should know that off the top of my head, don't you think? Alright, and there's our 2-inch mark. Actually, 2 points to describe a straight line. We'll go ahead and put in a safety mark at 16. Another inch. There we go. Alright, now we have enough points to that's the line we're trying to mark to. There. Just do it this way. And you can also take that straight down the straight edge if you so choose. I'm not gonna give you a lot of grief about how you cut things. Mostly because I won't be in your house when you're doing it. But also, I wouldn't even if I were there. can kind of see, even with the cuts I'm making, you know, the propensity for it to want to start to fray, just for no good reason whatsoever. If you all want to come closer, please feel free to do so. There's only a few of us, so it's not like we're going to be crowded.
I apologize, I'm short, I can't really see very
Yeah.
No, that's quite all right. Please feel free. This is meant to give you some information and some technique and some help. So if I'm not providing that very well, I apologize. So, okay, there's the downside of tape. If you actually cut into it, you get the little schnitzels to kind of remove. Stop. All right. Any other day, that would come right off. I'll have to strike a piece here or there, but by and large, there we go. All right, so we should have, if I've done this all properly, is something that kind of starts like a T and flares out toward the bottom. Actually, that'll probably show a little more the flare. So that's not too bad. All right. So now comes the fun part: watching me wrestle with a sewing machine.
Are you actually gonna wrestle it? 'Cause that'll be kind of cool.
Right, that'll be fun.
Well, we may get there. We may get there. Just stay tuned. All right, so clear out. Actually, now would be a perfect time for me to actually plug the thing in, which I've not yet done. And we have plenty of cable. Or should. There we go. Just take that up over there, like so, and foot pedal set. As the analogy was made earlier, the accelerator pedal.
That's right.
Okay, so the first couple stitches that you probably want to make, and you know, you kind of, well, actually, first of all, you want to put in the right thread. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's turn myself on here. And if you want to come by here real quick, or actually I can turn the machine around. This particular model has a number of different stitch types on the front. The one we'll be using is actually on the second row here. It'll be the zigzag stitch. And it's all it does is, you know, and as it moves forward, it also kind of goes side to side. And what that does for the monk's cloth, because of the grid pattern that it's woven in, it'll actually kind of lock those weaves together, and that's what keeps it from fraying. So, pulling out the white thread bobbin and spool. Throw in the brown thread bobbin and spool. Probably want to make sure that's actually going this way. It seems like it wanted to catch. That's going to be bad. All right, there we go. See if we can manage to. Now here's the fun part. You're probably going to want to get some popcorn for is watching me try to thread this thing. I have not yet successfully figured out how to use this machine's auto threading feature. So I usually just have to eyeball it and.
You know what? I haven't figured it out either, and I've watched a bunch of YouTube tutorials on it,
Right?
and I still haven't been able to figure out.
Yeah. So I find that usually what I end up having to do is just kind of be patient and as much as possible coax it in with a kind of a guiding finger. Did you get it? No. Missed it. Okay. When all else fails, try the other hand. Oh, what the heck? I know it's the wrong fandom, but kapla. Success. All right. Hey, put the cover on in the right direction, that works out a lot better. All right, so, as I mentioned before, we're going to want about an inch or an inch and a half of fray on the sleeves. So we'll start with one of the sleeves, we'll feed it in at about that spot. Set our stitch. There we go. And get the foot pedal in a good position. And just apply a little pressure. And feed the fabric through. And again, all we're really trying to do is just put a simple stitch through here. And it's mostly just there to keep everything from going completely away whenever we wear the costume. And it doesn't matter if this particular stitch is at all straight. Did I just lose my... No? Okay, we're still pulling. Okay. Because again, you know, we're talking about a frayed sleeve edge, so if it's a little random or irregular, that is okay.
Are you showing it at a 5/8 inch, or does it matter?
It doesn't really matter. I think it's probably 5/8 inch, but you know what? I did lose it.
Okay.
So from whatever, yeah, whatever happened right there, happened a lot. All right, now it didn't break the thread, it doesn't appear, so. And, yeah, so I will say this: the settings on the sliders are 5 and 5 basically. So
Okay.
I don't even know enough to know if that's what 5/8 is going to end up being. So, but again, if you want to come kind of look, the stitch itself is about 1/4 inch wide, and it's about 1/4 inch from peak to peak on the stitch on the zigzag itself. So, and that's just me moving the sliders until the machine is happy with me and tells me with the red LED. I am really very, very new at this and not at all experienced. So, you know, I've had a lot to learn, but I also feel like, as an example, I think people sometimes let the words screen accurate kind of scare them a little bit. And I think that they let that you know, chase them away from doing it because they think it's going to be hard. And there honestly are some things about costume making that are difficult or tricky. And that's why we try to have armor parties in our area and try to have people have experience doing things, help people who don't, you know, bring them along. We have actually at this very con, one of our newest members is debuting his Stormtrooper, which he was actually on the verge of giving up on, and one of our members kind of took him under his wing, and they built the kit together. And so now he's got a kit, he's approved, he's completed, he's doing his first troop, he's having the time of his life here. So it is fantastic. So I would say, don't let the fear of starting be a problem for you. I mean, it's mistakes can be expensive, or at least embarrassing. I am living proof of that, obviously, but it's the end result is worth it, and the trying is the part that's got the value. The being done is nice and satisfying, but the fact that you tried something new and you went outside your comfort zone, you tried to do it and really make something cool and interesting that you want to do is a great feeling, and I really want everyone to have that. So I also really want this thread to go through this needle, but I maybe not be getting all my wishes today. So come on. I also may be facing the idea that I may need slightly stronger readers or better light source, one of the two. So, but anyway, if this doesn't go through, then we're going to have a very, very less exciting, I mean, already than the thrill a minute that it is, panel here. So, did that do it? That did it. Yay. Awesome. Okay, so rethreaded and keep going. Actually, down there, I didn't even bother raising the foot. That was probably a mistake. But, okay, we're back again. And start off a little slow. So whatever happened before doesn't happen again. And away we go. So, like I said, a lot of this is going to look a lot like this. There we go. Pick up some gear there. Alright. That should have done it. There we go. So there is the one sleeve done. We'll actually come on around to the other side. And that is not a sleeve. Okay, where am I at in the cloth? There we go. I found the sleeve. And all this sea of coarsely woven brown. All right. Ma'am.
How many dogs?
Huh?
How many dogs?
At this point, it's at least 7. Not including this one. The 6 static Jawas that you see on our display in the room in there, I did all of those. We just broke another thread. Darn it! I can hear that sound. No, we didn't. Okay, never mind. False alarm. All right. Throw that back in there. So yeah, and then one for a special purpose Jawa that we use for polar plunges, which is meant to go into freezing pools with us. Oh, you know what? I take that back. It's only 5. The Hans and Franz came with their own robes, and we didn't have to do anything about them. Okay, now I've lost the thread.
All of our Jawas that are over there in the 5 birthday all have names. And the little set of.
Yeah, so the 2 with the ion blasters on their bandoliers are Hans and Franz, and that is because before we redid the bodies to look more like actual bodies, they were just PVC boxes. We bought them from someone who had them in their rec room or something as a display, and they had nice robes to them, and they were part of the set. So we were pretty happy to get them. But I mean, you could tell they were PVC boxes. They were just boxes of PVC pipe, and so we gave them more skeletal looking unders. And kept the robes, and that's really about it, because we had put together heads for all of them that have the lights and the capability for sound. So when people step on the press plate, they will make some sort of random Jawa noises. But so the four that are based on the mannequins, which originally started this project, we actually started it by having 4 child-sized mannequins and trying to figure out what to do with them, and reasoning that Jawas are kind of child-sized to start with, was where we went with that. So I did those 4 robes, and then the one for Alcatraz, who is our plunge Jawa, and has been thrown into pools on film, on the news. To kick off polar plunges.
Because in the 501st, we like to do things like jump into freezing cold water in our costumes to raise money for charity.
It's a lot of fun, and if you happen to catch one and you think we're going to be at it, come come watch us be stupid. It's great fun. And so there we go. Yep. All right, so I can already kind of tell that if I'm getting that kind of breakage, that I may be starting to develop a problem with the sewing machine or the quality of the thread. And I've used this thread before, so I'm more inclined to blame the machine. However, we will soldier on until it becomes untenable. So we'll at least finish out this one. I'm going to go ahead and skip the one around the bottom hem of the. Well, there's no hem, but the bottom edge of the robe. Simply for expediency's sake, and we'll cover more of the putting the seam together, at least along the sleeve or the side. There's not a lot of difference in the stitch either way, so once you've seen 5 minutes of one, you've seen 5 minutes of all of them. So yeah, this is not starting to sound real great, and my thread is not going anywhere, so I've broken the thread again. So so let's go ahead and kind of cut our losses on this. And we're 40 minutes in, so I will just go ahead and basically say that once you've kind of sealed off your edges, the sleeves and the bottom, you still have your cut material. And so what you do is decide for yourself which is going to be inside, which is going to be outside, and then turn it so that it's inside out. So I would think I would just by default decide that as I have it, it's going to be the inside. And I would just make sure that I had the edges lined up together along the length. And so, and this is where, again, I'm going to get in trouble with people who actually know how to sew, because I have never done this with pinning things. It's a weakness, it's a terrible habit, and I probably ought to get better at it. But I have found it easy enough to manage the fabric during the stitch without having to worry about the pins. And so basically what I'll do is I'll make sure that I'm kind of good and set up. And I will pantomime the motions here, even though the sewing machine probably isn't going to cooperate and actually throw a stitch for me. And we'll see if I can maybe get this addressed before we start trying to deal with the hood tomorrow, which is a more interesting stitch anyway. And I would basically feed, starting at the armpit, about a ½ inch in. Set the foot, hit the gas, as it were, and just run the stitch. And then as it's feeding through, I probably wouldn't go very fast, and I haven't gone very fast usually in the past, but just keep a finger and thumb together, keep the edges as it starts to feed in, so about 6 inches out from the head, or from the foot actually, and just keep that, so as it proceeds, just keep kind of making sure that's staying lined up and staying kind of taut without actually pulling on it very, very hard at all. And then down to the end, and lather, rinse, repeat on the sleeve and on the other side, and the other sleeve. And then you basically at that point have the basic robe complete. It's now a robe. It doesn't have a head hole yet, which would be the next part. And so we can go ahead and move to that, so that's more cutting. And again, what you're going to do there, the hood will cover a lot of the sins on this, because you're going to end up creating a hole. That's the other thing that we saw but didn't really point out in yesterday's CRL, or 2 hours ago's CRL expiration. Man, it feels a lot longer than that. Was that there really aren't any openings other than the head and obviously the sleeves and the bottom. As far as there's not a zipper, there's not a I believe there's an option to have the side open. So your side seam could be openable. But most of the ones that I have done, most of the ones I have seen, go on over the head and just hold on like an extremely long skirt. So again, taking advantage of the fact that things are symmetrical, we could fold to our sleeve, and now we've got this essentially this corner here. We just need to figure out how big a head we want to deal with. So keeping in mind that anything that the radius here, we need to, so said maybe this is our head length. We figure out what that looked like, and so that's going to be, well, let's say it's let's say it's a good 5 inches. And you can mark that off real quick. And then mark off a similar distance from the top, since it's a circle.
What kind of measurement do you do on the person to figure that out though?
So you would take your tape and you'd get basically their head circumference. And actually, or probably the better way to do it would be to find the widest particular dimension of their head, take that measurement, and then create a circle with a diameter of that. Now, the hole itself can be a little forgiving. You can kind of wiggle it back and forth, and it'll press over your nose and all of that sort of thing. But yeah,
You can
so
always cut more off too.
you
can't
could,
add it back on.
you can add it back on, so you can definitely be conservative with your cut. And in this case, we definitely don't want to use necessarily all of what we're doing, because we're going to fold over the edge, and then so the neck doesn't fray. So we'll basically create a hem around the neck. And that's where I said the hood will be covering a lot of sins for us, because the hood fits very, very low and very loose. And so it's going to cover a lot of your shoulder if it's being worn correctly. It'll tie, and then, so it'll cover up that area. But that's, again, also where your brown undergarments, your black undergarments are going to kind of, keep that from looking too obvious as well. So, but in this case, if we've got our, kind of our, and you could again draw this out with a curve tool or what have you, a French curve or whatnot, or you can just kind of eyeball it. Like, vive the eyeballing. Oh, hey, that came out almost perfect. And then, as I mentioned before, we're going to try to create a hem. So once we remove the tape, we would then cut about, I would say, 1/2 inch or less. 1/2 inch seems like a nice margin for that sort of thing, along each. So like about 1/2 inch there at the fold. And then about a 1/2 inch each. So I do probably 8 to 12 cuts. So 1/2 inch each there at this fold. And then maybe, actually I take the back, I do more than that, because this is going to be 8 just doing these. So I'm going to do at least, I may do those I'm going to do those 2 layers at a time, because that's going to be really, really unwieldy. But again, all you're really doing is basically creating enough of a relief in the circle that when you sew it, it doesn't get super blocky looking, or all of a sudden the fabric wants to run away from your stitch, or what have you. There you go. And I could also use a better pair of scissors for this, or not be in quite as large a hurry. But again, all you're really doing here is, again, creating just flaps you can kind of push over as you sew. And again, this is where people who are good at this would use pins, and people who aren't stubborn like me would use pins. Why do things the easy way? Now, a lot of sewing machines have the feature of being able to remove this deck, which gives you a much narrower space there. So when you went to sew this, what you would do is, again, working from the inside, being the part that's out, so you can fold over your neck hem, as it were. You just start, and I'm going to end up feeding this the wrong damn direction, but it's okay. So yeah, that's not going to work out at all. All right, so if I went the other way, yeah. Anyway, point being, what you would do is arrange for it to fold, and then actually, I just need to start from, that's what I'll do, I'll just start from this way and work my way around. See, I know I figured it out. Oh, me of little faith. So, here we go. So again, folding it over like that, starting at the first part of it, set the foot, again, probably about midway between the edges of your cut, just to get a nice margin on it. And start your stitch, push through. As you come to the next one, fold it in, slow down your accelerator there, follow the curve around, lather, rinse, repeat 8, 12, 16 times, however many cuts you put in it. And then basically you would have a neck hole and sleeves and a robe. So that's without the sewing machine cooperating very well. And I'm not sure how I'm going to get that right for tomorrow's hood, but that's a tomorrow problem. But that is essentially the basics of where we'd go with that. I do apologize for the equipment failure, but hopefully at least gave you kind of an idea of where to go when the equipment's working,
Yeah.
how to approach that process. So.
Worst case scenario, you can hand stitch.
Yep.
There you go.
And I did point that out earlier that it is easy enough to hand stitch if you got the patience and the time.
I hand stitch all my leather work and
Sure. Well then and if you're more comfortable with hand stitching, absolutely feel free. I mean the machine stitching is obviously more expedient, but it does it's whatever you're most comfortable with and whatever you think is going to get the job
I
done
reckon
for you.
other stitching machines are not cheap
Yeah.
for some machines.
Yep, for sure. So any other questions, real quick? I mean, I just had Zach come in and give me the time signal, so we are in the wrap-up phase, so if there's any questions, if not, I think the next session in this is 2 o'clock tomorrow. And then our next session in this room is the 501st Rebel Legion, Mandalorian Mercs, Dark Empire, Droid Builders, and Saber Guild Cross Club Q&A Extravaganza. So, if you've got any questions about how to become a member of the 501st Legion or any of the associated sister clubs, that we'll be able to answer them there. Yes, sir.
Quick question. I don't know if you can answer it today or tomorrow in the next class. The circle hood, what do you put inside of it?
So what I use for that is, are you familiar with house electrical wire?
Yeah.
Like Romex?
Because I made one for my wife and I put exactly.
So I don't use the whole strand of Romex though. I'll take one of the conductors,
Yeah.
and I'll just use one of the wires, and then I'll sew that into the hem. And then what I'll do is I'll actually put a loop in each end of it, and I'll sew by hand that loop to the fabric so that it doesn't shift around and try to poke, because that stuff is sharp and it'll poke out and work its way out as you go. Yeah.
It's poking out and I'm like, what do I do?
I've also experimented with using like the ring terminals for like electrical work.
Okay.
If you crimp one of those onto the end of that and then sew into the ring terminal, that'll also keep it from kind of shifting around like that. So yeah, very good. And you wanted a sample of the cloth, yes?
Yeah.
So yeah, come
Yeah.
on up. We'll get you a sample. And in fact, if this will work for you, you can have the neck hole.
Okay. Thanks.
If not, I can get you a larger piece of any of this. Like I said, it would all go to being.
I mean, if you could cut me off a square, that'd be great.
Oh, absolutely. No, I can totally.
I got 3 of these I gotta make.
Aha, there you go. Well, man with a work cut out for him, so to speak.
My stepson wants to be